This is Democracy and Z, a student podcast brought to you by Cincinnati Public Radio in collaboration with ELEMENTZ. For more, find us at democracyandme.org.
Okay, so I guess I'll start. So I'm David Osterbrock. I'm a senior at Walnut Hills High School here in Cincinnati, and I'm an intern for the Vote Gabe Davis campaign. So he's running for prosecutor for Hamilton County. He's currently in the primary.
Hi, I'm Clark Griffith. I'm a senior at Walnut Hills High School. I run a Womanist Wednesday page on my Instagram where I just post positive affirmations that's inclusive to all sexes, genders, races, and everything about where we stand in this world and the power that we have. And feminism without intersectionality is white supremacy, so always be intersectional when you talk about feminism.
Peridot.
Hi guys, my name is Lydia Graves. I'm a senior at Walnut Hills High School. I'm a member of a few different things. I do Young Activist Coalition, which is based here in Cincinnati, and there's lots of different students that participate throughout like the greater tri-state area. I also help out our next friend that's about to speak with Rise 16, which is, I'll let him explain that. And I also like to write political opinion pieces for my high school's newspaper.
Hello, my name is Yousuf Munir. I am a junior at Walnut Hills High School. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the founder of Rise 16. That's RYSE.16, stands for Rallying Youth for Suffrage and Empowerment, and we're essentially dedicated to lowering the voting age to 16 in Cincinnati and getting more and more young people involved in politics, especially local politics.
I guess today we're going to talk about how we see 2020 and activism and how all of this stuff that we live through has shaped our political opinions and how we see life. So we talked before about activism. So some of us in this room would consider ourselves as activists. I personally don't. I know Yousuf
David,
does.
give yourself some credit. I also consider you an activist.
Okay.
You are.
So how would you guys define activism? Because I'm kind of on the fence with this because I think there's a lot of like internet activists that
Blech.
you can't see a lot of like direct results from their work. Maybe it's spreading the word about it. And I've had some conversations with people who are like, some people can't come to rallies, so they do stuff online, which is great. Like I think it's helpful to a point, but like a million internet activists isn't gonna beat 100 people who just like go knock doors, I think.
I don't think
you're
Mitch McConnell
definitely
looks at
right.
our tweets.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So like how would you define activism, Yousuf?
I think activism is less about in the way you do it, although I do think internet activism is not activism. But I think that activism is about understanding that you live in an unfair society and that there are systems that perpetuate it, and that we all have a moral obligation to fix these systems and make them so that they benefit we, the people. So I think when you first understand that, you first start becoming an activist. But the moment when you really become an activist is when you become active in dismantling the system, not just being aware of it, which is kind of what I think the problem with internet activism or social media activism is because it doesn't really do anything besides the awareness, which like is not hard. Everyone is aware of things. That's the benefit of technology.
I definitely agree. So how do you see yourself as an activist? How do you define it, Lydia?
So I define activism. I'm gonna like pick up a few points you guys just made. For me, activism is being cognizant of what's happening in my political environment, and I think that a lot of teenagers aren't like they're not worried on the day-to-day basis about like what's happening in their political landscape, and I think that like in order to be an activist, you need to be informed. So I think that yes, like it is important to like proliferate like your ideas on media and social media, but that doesn't cut it. Like the part that makes you an activist is to get off your phone, put your phone away, like and do things that are important. Like if you want to make a stance on what you think is important, you need to give something up. Like you need to give up going out with your
impeachment rally on a
Yes.
Tuesday night. Yeah.
Me and David, Yousuf, were you there?
I was not.
Clark, were
Isabel
you at
was,
the
though.
impeachment rally?
No, I was not.
Yeah, so like along with my point is like I had exams the next day.
Yeah.
Was I home studying? No, I gave that up because I thought this was more important, and I think that's where the line draws with, like, are you an activist or not? Or, like, what activism truly is like, just, like, stepping out of your comfort zone and, like, giving up something so that people see you, like, really mean and really care about what you're fighting for.
How about you, Clark?
I would have to compare activism to, like, when you pick up a pencil. Like, a lot of people have these thoughts, but what are you doing to, like, write them down? Like, how are you getting it heard? How are you going to see it? And that can, like, just go anyway. Like, activism, it could be an art. Like, somebody paints an art piece. It's calling out the crooked system that we all live in. And it's when you look at things objectively and not subjective. Don't give your opinion, your side of the story, but you're inclusive to everybody's side of the story, because it all roots from, like, all of us. Like, we all are trying to better the country we live in. We're trying to better the world. And it all takes, like, when you pick up that pencil, when you start writing, everybody's voices get heard, not just yours.
Yeah. So I know Yousuf has like a kind of long past with activism, considering you're only 17.
In a day, 2 days?
In a
few
day,
days.
2 days.
Happy
So you're still
birthday.
Thank you,
16.
thank you. I mean, I'm expecting birthday gifts from all of you. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Drake.
So I know you do Young Activist Coalition, and that's how I met you at a Rob Portman rally downtown. Not for him, against him.
Not exactly a fan of him.
Yeah. So, like, I know you explained to me one time about how those rallies are a lot to organize. Like, whether it was March for Our Lives, which I guess you helped with, and then the Women's March, which you decided to not do.
One of our few activist failures as an organization.
So, like, what started you, like, wanting to get active? Because you went from being, like, I'm guessing a 15-year-old who is not having
You're
much
like 14
going
probably.
I was
to,
still a
like-
14-year-old when I started, though. I didn't magically grow up.
to, like, planning these big events that, like, I say I want to be Yousuf when I grow up, and I'm
Same.
older
Literally,
than
my
him.
president.
He is my president.
Yeah. So, like, how did you start?
I started, like a lot of other people, getting involved after the horrible Parkland shooting. I saw people my age and like a year or two older than me just getting out there and not listening to the people telling them that they can't do it and just deciding that they would do it. I think that was one of the things that finally pushed me. Yes, there were already activists of color who were already doing this work, and that's very important to highlight, but I didn't see it, and which is a problem. I didn't see it in the media as much as I saw those Parkland activists, and I didn't see as much of like a movement, especially among people with the privilege to not see the issue of gun violence every single day. And so when I did see that, I kind of just like woke up from my sleep and I was like, I have a lot of privilege to not be doing anything, and I can't be doing that and be morally okay with that. So I just decided that enough was enough and that I needed to do something. So I went to this event where Fred Gutenberg was at, who's the parent of one of the kids who unfortunately lost their lives in Parkland. And I met someone from Young Activist Coalition there, and it just snowballed from there, and I kept getting more and more involved.
Yeah. And all at the age of, like, 14?
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
He was actually born and just immediately was holding a sign that said
Yeah.
activism.
Yeah. So I know you're involved, like, differently, I would say, Clark. So how did you, like, start getting active?
I would say I first started getting active when I decided to educate myself, like, beyond, like, schooling, like, just going out in the community and, like, seeing people, like, seeing the people who do struggle, like, the people who, like, usually don't have a voice because they are struggling. So my teacher, Elizabeth Ormsby, played a real big pivotal role in, like, my educating and also why I'm so involved in politics and why I'm, like, so, like, woke and everything. She is no longer alive, but may she rest in peace. So I would say my first, like, activist event would be the Women's March of 2018, and it changed my entire perspective. Like, it was about 1,000 people there, but, like, in that 1,000, just me, myself, I felt big. I didn't feel like my voice was soft. My voice was small, but we were all involved in something, like, something greater than us. Like, everybody's working for a movement. So that really, like, sparked my activism to start Women's Wednesday, because so many people like me, like, being a Black woman, I know other girls who don't believe this stuff, or they're not talked about it. Like, they feel like, oh, it's just the same, it's a stereotype, like, it's going to happen to me anyway. But, like, no, like, you have a choice in this world, you have a say, and you could do so much, and, like, your voice is so powerful. And, like, that 1 in 1,000, be that one, because you're going to be heard.
I'm so inspired.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
beautiful.
David, you don't consider yourself an activist, but how did you get politically engaged or like how do you do the stuff you do, or what motivates you?
Turning the table.
Had me
Yeah.
canvassing in
Ooh.
the rain. You're an activist.
Yes.
I agree with Clark. She's right.
So I don't think I'm like an activist like
okay to be
you
wrong.
guys. I mean, yeah.
No, everyone's an activist in their own way.
It's facts.
I mean, I'll go to a rally or two. I went to the Rob Portman one and the impeachment one. I mean, we love a rally, but like every day is not for a rally. I think like especially in like primaries where maybe you don't want to stand on the side of the road and say someone's not a Democrat. Maybe you just like canvas for the person who you believe in. And believe it or not, that worked. But so I'm more of a like, let's change it from the inside and let's not necessarily all the time yell on the street. But I do think there's a time to yell on the street. Like there's 100% of time. But in 2018, I worked as an intern in Ohio 2nd, and I like didn't know how much I would like it, and I like threw myself into it because I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna like half do it just for the government hours. So I remember it was my second week, and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like this is 100% what I want to do. And I remember spending way too much time there as a junior. like I remember people there who were new were like, oh, like where do you go to college? Like where do you are you an intern from somewhere? I was like, no, I go to high school. Like
David's like, I'm a child.
yeah, actually.
You
Like,
were.
I remember like I was driving for like 2 months before I went there. And then like I also like learned my city so well from driving around and canvassing literally all over.
Yes.
Like I like know the entirety of this county now from canvassing. So I think it's been like a great experience. And the reason why I got active is because like I was afraid. Like I know I come from a place of so much like privilege. Like I don't have to march in the street ever. Out of anyone's room, I have the best chances of like on paper of like, hey, I should get this job. I'm like a white guy. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have the same things like Clark and Yousuf do, but I definitely feel like afraid for how the country's going. And I think you can change that at the local level. How about you, Lydia? Like, how did you get active?
I think that like instilled for me in an early age was like a passion for politics, and like my first like real political memory was my mom like pulling me out of my second grade class and going to a rally for Obama while he was running for president. And ever since like that moment, I feel like I was just like more opinionated and I spoke out. I wouldn't say I was like obviously like really involved in like true activism or anything until Yousuf, one of my dear friends, really like pulled me in. And also Clark and I had the same government teacher, Miss Ormsby, and in that class we were required to do any sort of like government hours. I can't remember. You guys can correct me. Did we have to canvass or was it?
We didn't have to canvass. I think it was like we could do 15 hours. 15
So
to 10.
I did canvassing, and like David was saying, like
Yes.
something in that just like changed it for me. Like it was just like seeing firsthand and experiencing it myself, like how I could impact the political life of the people in my city, and just like learning about how the system truly works was just like so incredible, and it really made an impact on me. So I think that was probably like one of the first events that I really took part of. Maybe before that I went to the first Women's March in Washington, D.C., and like Clark was saying, like that was even like your phone didn't work. There were so many people. There was a blackout. Like
Wow.
Oh, dang.
that was like
That's power.
that is power.
Yeah.
That is us people made your phone not work. Like there's that many people.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was probably. It's just hard to remember. I think that was probably the first like true.
Yeah, that was 2017.
Yes, that was a
so-
long time ago, kind of.
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time just flies
Well,
when you have a
when
crazy
did you go
man
to
in
that
the presidency.
Obama rally? 2008?
It would have been like probably 2007
Okay.
because I was in second grade.
I went-
was it, like,
I went to a
2007?
Mitt Romney rally.
It's okay, David. We
It
still
doesn't-
love
It's
you.
okay. You had
would,
to
like-
become educated.
Kid Rock was playing.
Oh my
I
God.
don't know. I described it to Yousuf as a Kid Rock concert that Mitt Romney was speaking at.
That's beautiful.
Democracy NC is a program of Cincinnati Public Radio and WVXU with support from the Charles H. Dater Foundation. Thanks for listening up.
This is Democracy NZ, a student podcast brought to you by Cincinnati Public Radio in collaboration with ELEMENTZ. For more, find us at democracyandme.org.
Well, I know some of us are more like seasoned activists than others. Yousuf is particularly like, again, I want to be him when I grow up.
Be yourself when you grow up, David.
Yeah, thank you for that.
But with impacts of you. Literally.
So, like, I know we've talked about activism fatigue, and it's like, it's real. And I feel like voter fatigue is something that people don't talk about enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in 2020, a lot of people are going to be like, why even? Like, why go to the polls? Because look what happened last time.
Yeah,
or maybe
totally.
they're happy with the choice last time, and maybe they switched Democrat in 2018 or whatever. Like, but I know that there's a lot of voter fatigue in that. So, I mean, I know like from watching the news and just like being around it, not necessarily paying attention too much, you just like it. You're like it starts to like, I think like truly rot you from the inside because
totally.
it's so
It's a lot.
much.
I
It's a
think
lot.
especially like right now with everything that's going on in the impeachment trial, like I listen to a podcast every morning, some sort of like politically based podcast, and it's just like getting to the point where it's like the same, just like you were saying, it kind of like rots you almost.
Yeah.
Like listening to all of the awful things that Trump does like every single day, and like I hope that it does the opposite of fatiguing people, that like we need to not be fatigued by it. We need to like let it energize us, because we can't let this like awful news happen every single day.
I think just talking about like activism, like fatigue or burnout and voter fatigue, I think one of the things that we have to like know is that it's something that's going to happen no matter what we do, no matter who's the president, whether it be Obama or Donald Trump, no matter what, we're going to have that fatigue because we're working against a system and we're working for something better, and that's going to be exhausting no matter what we do. I think what's important to remember is that, and this is something that I forget a lot of the time, and most of my activist friends forget a lot of the time, is that we are just as important as the changes we're trying to make, and will last so much longer if we take care of ourselves and practice self-care and give ourselves a break from the news, which I agree is way too much.
100%.
From constantly doing work, from constantly like being responsive to everything, and just like to sometimes just breathe, I think is how I usually deal with it.
That's beautiful.
No,
Or I try to.
100%. Like, we need to understand, like, our power. Like, so many people, like, I think we first get tired when we see ourselves, like, what am I doing? Like, I can't really help it. But, like, once we know our power, some people get power out of helping others, helping themselves. But, like, once we fulfill our duty to, like, just help the world, like, be a better you, make a better world, like, it's going to help everything. Like, we just can't, like, we can't get tired. We can't get, like, upset because with the impeachment, like, oh, they're really going to let this man get away with this stuff. Like, we have to get fed up to a point. Like, we don't want him to get away with it. So what are we going to do to stop it? And it takes all of us.
At least they'll get Hunter Biden because that's who's on trial.
Oh,
Literally.
Yeah. He's standing up there. Sitting on the
Hunter?
Where are you?
No, you won't find him. They're not calling anybody up.
He's actually in Ukraine right now. Yeah.
And you know what's crazy? Because at my job, when something happens, we have to file the report. And the first thing my manager says, what were the witnesses?
They use so now where do you work?
Olive Garden.
So in the Olive Garden, they
Are
like
you
to call
recently
witnesses
departed?
to trial.
Yes.
Aren't you recently departed from Olive Garden, though?
Long story.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think we all face, like, some level of burnout. And I think it kind of accompanies school with all of us.
Totally.
I know we all do, like, APs and CCP, some of us. I don't know why I just looked at you like that. Yeah, so I think it can go hand in hand with school stuff. Like, I think if you combined all of it, it's like your entire day is just, like, truly filled with everything. And also, like, we love the stuff that we're doing. Like, we love it. So there's no, like, clocking out. And, like, I remember working as a host, and you could just clock out. Like, you're just done. And, like, I cannot imagine doing that now. Like, I love the job that I do now. But it's, like, it's also, like, it's all-consuming. And, like, every single day, I'm like, wow, I am so glad I'm doing this. Because I get to see the person I'm working for usually, like, every few days. And it just reminds me, like, this is why I'm doing it. Like, because we need change in Hamilton County, or we need change in Ohio's 2nd and
America.
Yeah.
So, like,
We need
every
change in
time you
America.
interact with him, like, you're recharged about,
Yes.
like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, and I think it's so important to remember, like, truly why you're doing this and why you got into doing it.
I think it's also important, though, to, like, draw boundaries and let yourself clock out, like you said, because if you don't clock out, you're going to burn out more and more often, and you're going to be less and less effective. And that's what happened to me recently in December with exams coming up and with all of the activism stuff I had going on. I just, like, completely burned out and didn't do anything for a few weeks. And that was because I didn't let myself clock out. I was staying up late doing activism stuff, doing school stuff without thinking about how that's going to end up affecting the stuff that I love. And so I think it's important to, like, set boundaries for yourself. Things like things as simple as, like, not doing any activism work or, like, political work after, like, 9 or 10 p.m. Like, it's just the simple little stuff like
I'm
that.
asleep by 10 p.m.
Yeah, I'm in bed by 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Y'all crazy.
Right?
You're the crazy one.
So I was talking to a teacher that I've had before. I'm not sure if you guys have had her. But earlier today we were talking about how we are all in, like, we've all kind of experienced, like, an individual, like, way to be, like, politically socialized. So like, we all grew up post 9/11. So, like, when we go to the airport, it's, like, pretty much all, like, scanners and
I do love being
too
randomly
many
selected.
people. Yeah, I mean, I've never randomly
Randomly.
selected, but
Air quote.
My name is Yousuf. It's not my fault.
yeah. And then we all basically grew up with school shootings. And I remember, like, where I was, like, when I heard about Sandy Hook, and I was 10. Like,
oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my parents sitting me down and, like, having to have that conversation with me and, like, just being so confused. I'm like, I'm 10. Like, what is this serious conversation you need to have with me?
and I think it's hard for, like, truly everyone involved, because there's no, like, parenting guide
Mm-hmm.
to tell your
Totally.
kid about, like,
Yeah.
you're not necessarily safe when you go to school.
Yeah.
And, like, we have metal detectors at our school.
That are
The
unplugged
worst.
about an hour later, right?
No. Just a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
School starts at 7:30. If you walk in at 7:31, the metal detectors are off. You're good.
And it's also, like, a random selection who goes through it.
Yeah, not everyone goes through these metal detectors.
So I have
Or
not.
when it goes off, oh, you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just keep going. It's fine.
It's my
probably like a
necklace.
pen.
No,
Which,
it's
like,
not.
here's the thing: is that the evidence doesn't show that those metal detectors work. It's just, like, a cop out to, like,
Yeah.
remove
It's
liability,
that whole
which is, like,
yeah.
whatever. Not good. Very bad.
Very
Yeah, and,
Beep,
like,
beep, beep,
I haven't gone through them at all this year, and I mean, I do come in late, so, like, I'm not
Yeah,
there when
David
they're on.
and I
Exactly.
have late arrivals, so how are we still safe if these people are coming in after school? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it's not
hopefully they
doing
don't sleep
anything.
in.
yeah,
That's all I have to say.
hopefully the school shooter doesn't sleep in.
Yeah, so I know, like we lived through Parkland most recently. That was the one that most, like, broke in the news, and I truly do feel like, and there are a lot of school shootings, but I do feel like it depends on the news day. Like, like, it's crazy. It's ridiculous.
I
like,
think to bring up what we were talking about earlier, it's almost like a fatigue in a sense,
Yeah.
I feel at this point, because it's like I don't want to put, like, a numerical value on it because it's going to be wrong, but, like, every blank amount of days, like, you're hearing about a new shooting, and at this point, it's like, so, like, at what point does little children, like, kindergartners being shot, like, not get you to do anything? So, like, at what point we have to keep hearing about these stories and nothing happens. So I feel like, at least for me, it's just, like, very fatiguing to, like, hear all these awful stories and just, like, know that even though I'm reading this and I know that this happened, like, nothing, like, it seems like nothing's going to change except for us lovely people in here who are trying to make a difference.
We do
Yeah.
be saving the world, though.
and, like, I don't think there is a point. Like, I don't think it matters.
How haven't
honestly.
we reached that point by now if there is a point? You know what I'm saying?
It's
Yeah.
just It's just became normal. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to get tired. You're going to go to sleep. It just became normal. And it goes even deeper than school shootings. Like, growing up, before Sandy Hook or everything, I remember hearing my brother's girlfriend, her little sister got shot by her dad, and she's dead. I remember going to school hearing things like, oh, my cousin got shot, this, like that, like, the school shootings in general, like school shootings, like anything, this has been happening, like, especially for the Black community. It's been decimating them for years, and, like, no one wants to do nothing. Like, we only talk about it when we see little white kids getting shot, but there's a kid every day that gets shot in a drive-by in their house, in somewhere they feel safe. Like, over the summer, this boy Ike, he went to North College Hill. He got shot. He was playing basketball. A fight broke out, and they killed him. Like, how do we normalize that? Like, every life should matter. It's not about the school shooting. It's just not about that. It's about how can we help. Like, we need gun control, obviously, and like people are scared to push it. But like, we don't need it just in schools. We need it on the streets. People are dying
100%.
every day.
And that's exactly, that's like one of the things that's never talked about. Like, we're talking about school shootings getting normalized in the news. These people in poor Black and brown communities, like nearly 100 people in those communities die every single day, and you never see that stuff on the news. And if you do, it's because it was police brutality, and then people like make it a thing like it was their fault for getting abused by the police, which is like just insane. It makes no sense.
Yeah. And like, I honestly, for gun control, I don't have hope for like comprehensive like rules or even like a red flag law in most states, because like Parkland happened in Florida, and then they had a Democratic senator who was like, they were neck and neck in 2018, and he lost. So like, there is no one like in Florida who is like, hey, I am a Republican, but I want a person who's going to push for gun control, so I'll vote for this Democrat. And like, there has been Democratic senators in 2000. And I think 2008, they elected 2 Democratic senators. Not 2, the same one. And, like, it's possible. Like, it's 100% possible. We have a Democratic senator in the state of Ohio. Like, it is 100% possible. Please give us some gun control, guys. And, like, I know people don't vote on one issue in an election. I know most people are like, I'll just vote for who I've been voting for forever. But I think it's, like, time to truly re-examine that. Like, across the board for everything. Because in our cities, like, Cincinnati has such control over how we, like, live our lives, truly. And the county does, too, because, like, we do have an all-Democratic county commission, and we have a pretty heavy Democrat council. But, I mean, like, we could have gun laws that would help the city and the county.
Cincinnati does have a bunch of gun laws, but like the thing is that it doesn't matter because Cincinnati is not that hard to get out of and then just buy guns from somewhere else, which is like the biggest problem is that we need to do it on a federal level, and Democrats have not had do not have a Senate majority, and also like there are some Democrats who won't vote for it, and there are some, not that many on the national level, Republicans who are in favor of gun sense legislation. Here's the thing: is that like you can also just think about it from like a populist perspective. Like, we should do what the American people want. The American people want gun sense legislation. There's been tons and tons of studies and polls done that show that like a majority of Americans, like over 80%, want universal background checks and red flag laws and like the most basic things. But because the NRA was such a powerhouse and is not as much anymore, like nothing ever changed.
Yeah, and I think, like, about that Democratic Senate majority, I don't think it's possible because, like, in government class, we learned about, like, every state gets 2 senators. Whether you have 800,000 people in Montana, I mean, they have 1 rep. So that state gets the same 2 people that California does. So, I mean, I think there's a heavy weight towards, like, conservatism in the Senate. I don't think we're going to get 51.
So do you think we should reform that system?
I don't necessarily have a view on that. I mean, I think it's broken, but a lot of things are broken. I don't think we should start like reforming the Senate. I don't think we should pack the courts either. But hot take. I don't know.
I think that as people grow up and in our age group, start to vote more, it's going to be really interesting. I want to have like a positive outlook on
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah,
because I
David.
will go
Yeah.
crazy if not. I heard that.
Do you think that our generation is more progressive than others?
Yeah, so just to like make this point
Yeah.
first, like in the upcoming 2020 election, it's estimated that a third of the electorate will be like first-time voters, so people our age. And I think that is very hopeful information because I think the majority of us, especially on the topic we're discussing right now, like we, more than anyone, just today at Walnut Hills High School, we had a school shooting drill lockdown procedure. And just like, I don't know about you guys, but like going through those, like throughout, we've been doing those since we were in what, like,
Forever.
I
since
remember
like
when in
kindergarten, I
kindergarten,
guess.
yeah.
And just like having those experiences for me is just like so like triggering. It is terrifying thinking about like, because I don't think about it in my day-to-day life, but when that drill happens and like everyone is just laughing because we have no other way to like cope with it. And
Yeah.
so like, it's just terrifying that like that can be our reality. And I think that, like, for people, like, growing up with that happening, like, we do those, like, twice a year, like, to have those, like, kind of, like, anxiety-ridden moments, like, every year, I think that it's, like, a lot more, ingrained in our brains and we think about it more because it's just, it's, like, affected our generation more. So I would like to hope that, like, on this particular issue that, yes, like, a third of the new electorate will be like voting for common like gun sense and gun control.
Definitely. I think our generation, I think we're becoming more intimate with issues. Like, we're not letting, like, since we don't see it, doesn't really affect us. But I think since we are, even if we're not seeing it, when we see it, it's affecting us. It's not just like it happened to this person. It's happening to all of us. I just feel like we're more of like a melting pot. Like, so many things are like being open. Like, we see someone else hurting, like, we're empathetic towards that. And, like, not sympathetic, like, we can empathize with you, we can help you. Like, how do we help you? And, like, so I think I'm really hopeful, like, 2020, the year of vision. So
do you think
we
that
better
comes
see.
from, like, social media and everyone being, like, because I feel like you're more, like, you get more of, like, a look into everyone's life on a day-to-day basis?
I definitely think social media plays with it. Like, over Sunday when Kobe died, like, my Kobe and his daughter and everybody on that plane, like, I meant the helicopter, like, RIP to them. But, like, as I'm going down my timeline, all I'm seeing is them. And, like, that's what we need in politics. Like, we need to see that everybody's issues is on the front line. And, like, just seeing the impact that Kobe had. Like, think about the impact that everybody else can have. Like, when we pick up the torch, when we decide to become role models, when we decide to vote, when we decide to go to the rallies, like, we're so powerful. And once we understand that power, we can literally shut the system down and, like, remake it into our own.
But I think,
again, so inspirational.
I think this is something that David touched on earlier, is that, like, he doesn't think that we should be rallying, like, every single day. And, Clark, you just mentioned, like, social media and rallying. I think that, like, both of those, and this is someone who plans many, many rallies.
Many.
I think it's important to remember that those are both just first steps. That's what most, like, veteran activists say, is that a rally is a way to, one, raise awareness, and two, get more people involved in a movement than they were before, as well as a way to put pressure on public officials. But sometimes that doesn't happen unless there's a follow-up, because sometimes they're just like, oh, it's a bunch of kids just standing outside my office. Like, I don't care, at Rob Portman. But, like, if we just go to that rally and do nothing else, if we just make a social media post and do nothing else, that's not activism. That's not effective. We need to make sure that we take the next step, which is things like contacting your elected officials, doing work also within the system, but also like just working to build a community that advocates for each other.
I think to build more successful rallies, like you were saying, like we've like been focusing at YAC meetings, like being like, okay, so what's our like next step going to be for this event? And for example, like when David and I were at the impeachment rally, they had everyone pull their phones out and they had a number you text, and it was like, and then it would come back and give you like your senator's number, like every single number
like
you
a
need.
script. You got to make it really easy.
Yeah, and it gave you a script. You need to make it so easy for people. And I think that in rallies, if you're planning a rally and you want like some actual, besides just like raising awareness and getting attention, and you want an actual like thing to come of it. You really need to do that and make it as easy as possible for people. Like, how can you say no if you have this number right on your phone in a script? Like, if you know exactly what to say, you don't even have to think about it.
A lot of people still say no.
It's just like, I know, but it's just so easy at that point. And I think that the easier we can make it for people that, like, aren't as crazy, like, fired up about things as we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Crazy liberals.
That's what makes success comes from these rallies. And I think that I don't know, it's just, like, so great to have that, like, really easy to follow step. Democracy in Z is a program of Cincinnati Public Radio and WVXU, with support from the Charles H. Dater Foundation. Thanks for listening up.
This is Democracy and Z, a student podcast brought to you by Cincinnati Public Radio in collaboration with ELEMENTZ. For more, find us at democracyandme.org.
We are, like, definitely a minority of people who, like, do, like, actually get involved. Like, after something happens in the world, like, when, like, the forests are burning down or whatever.
It took an
or whatever.
Instagram live to post it.
Yeah,
Save the koalas.
it took days to, like, click through Instagram stories and not see that on everyone's story. And I don't, like, when you repost that thing and they swear, like, they're giving food to people, like, that's probably not true.
Repost and like
Sorry.
it. We'll plant a tree.
Yeah, and, like,
they're
not
really gonna do that.
they're not planting a tree. I'm sorry, but
No, they're definitely gonna sell that account and make it a meme account.
Yeah,
That's what happens.
so, like, I feel like we're definitely a minority that, like, actually go out and maybe, like, canvass or go to a rally or whatever. So, and I do feel obligated. I'm not sure if you guys.
We're all
How
entitled
you
to our
guys
own
feel.
opinions.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
Lydia,
feel
I
like-
also think you're wrong.
Well, I feel like it is our duty because we see so many people who are disadvantaged. Like, so many people can't get in the fight because, one, they don't know about the fight, and there's restrictions that's limiting them to get in the fight. Like, we have people who've been sentenced for increments of marijuana charges 30 years to life. But we see states like California, the District of Columbia, like, you can smoke marijuana and you can vote. Like, why are we prohibiting these people who just got out of jail, who did their time? They can't vote. They can't make the change that they want to see. So, like,
Reagan was racist.
I feel like that is such a crazy issue that you can, like, just because you've committed a crime that you are no longer, your voice doesn't matter in how your government's run. Like, you were put in that prison because of the way your government runs. And then you're going to tell them they don't have a say in how that, like, that is a big issue.
Facts. It's just removing the right to vote
It's-
from, like,
yeah.
so many Americans,
Yeah.
specifically,
And
like, people of color.
Because we disproportionately imprison people of color.
Mhm.
So you're just taking that right away even more, with which they're already oppressed.
Institutionalized racism.
retweet.
But I also, like, going back to what we were talking about before, I also feel like I have an obligation, and that's just because, like, I have a lot of privilege. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, yeah, I might be, like, Muslim and brown and the son of immigrants, but, like, I also come from an affluent family, luckily, and that gives me a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunities that so many people wouldn't have. And that's something that, like, I think we forget, is that activism is literally, it's a lot of it is built on privilege, especially for people that aren't in those poor Black communities, because, like, most people don't have the time and can't spend the time that activism requires. And, like, it's something we have to be cognizant of. But I also think that just from, like, a moral point of view, we have to care for our fellow people. I think that's what makes a democracy work is when we do work for our fellow people, even if it's not affecting us personally. Like, and that's why I feel like I have a moral obligation to do the things that I do.
That's really interesting. But, like, let's
Thank
think of, so the only reason I said, like, I don't feel like obligated is because, like, if we're thinking about it, like,
Mhm.
so I believe I'm the only 18-year-old in the room, so I'm the only one who can vote.
she's
Sorry, I'm showing off. So, like, do you still feel like you're obligated to, like, fix this system that you're not even, like, old enough to vote in? And, like, I don't feel like the blame, I mean, obviously, like, we play a role in it, and we're, like, and you're being, like, you're helping aid the system if you don't stand up. But I just find it like hard to say that like a 16-year-old is obligated to like fix the sins and the mistakes of the founding fathers. Like that's where I'm coming from.
So
Hey, they were racist too, bro.
I mean, I feel obligated, but it's not from like necessarily always like I have to help my fellow man. It's
Yeah.
kind of like they cannot get away with that. Like in any other like in like logically, like you can't imprison like tons of people and get away with that and be a senator for 20 more years. Like that's not how things should work.
I'd like to inform everyone that America actually has the highest per capita rate of prisoners in the entire world.
Yeah.
Really
I mean,
interesting.
come on.
Look it up.
We're number one for a reason, guys.
Yeah.
Clark, why do you feel obligated?
Well, I feel like more so the obligation comes from educating yourself about it, like becoming aware about it. Like we're all privileged. Like we're sitting in a radio station room. Like that's privilege at its uttermost and stuff. We go to Walnut, the #1 school in Ohio, nationally ranked. We have such a good education. And, like, I'm just seeing, like, what I feel like right now where my duty is, like, I'm seeing the education system. Like, we go to Walnut where it's a Cincinnati public school, and public schools are disproportionately for people of low income. But I'm seeing kids come from Turpin, Lakota, blah, blah, blah. They're coming in, they're getting their education from Walnut. But then I see you have to take a test again, Walnut. Then I see Woodward, I see Gamble, I see Withrow. They're being held to lower standards, and, like, people really aren't getting their education. Like, some people who do choose to go to college, you're going to college not knowing anything about it, and, like, they feel like I want to fix the system, but how? I was never like given an education about the system. Like I just feel like education is so important right now, and I feel like so many people are like pushing it to the side. But once you educate yourself about the system, you're going to become so much aware. Like it's not just my problem. I can help her. I can help her. I can help him. And like we just need that. Like everyone, like education is so important. Like I just went to the African American History Museum in Washington D.C. and like people like fought for our right to education. Like we're just throwing it down the drain. And I understand school isn't for everyone, but helping others, like that's an obligation itself. Everyone should help everybody else because we all want to be better. Like, so why can't we help someone else get better? Like we have the privilege to sit in this room. Why can't we help someone else who doesn't have the privilege to sit in this room? Everyone deserves a seat at the table.
That's
or forget
factual.
about the table and make your own table.
That's facts.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if you had Miss Ormsby, but I want to acknowledge something real quickly. So,
I love you if you're listening.
yeah, so three of us had a government teacher who I would say changed all
She
our
changed
lives.
my
Yeah,
life.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she made me like definitely the person who I am today, 100%. And she made me care about politics, and I kind of did before, but I wasn't like, again, 2012 I went to a Mitt Romney rally, so like I don't.
There's a lot of change.
I don't think we ever got an apology for
I
that.
was-
Yeah, can you apologize to
I
all
was
of us?
brought to a Romney rally. I was
Against your will.
I was 10. Like, what were my parents? What is going on? Like,
This will come up if you ever run for office. I hope you know.
Where
Yeah,
is
that.
someone's
it?
gonna find like a bit of you saying this and like display it over. and over.
probably.
I was at a Mitt Romney rally. I was at a Mitt Romney rally.
I mean, yeah. Okay, but again, so our government teacher, like, I mean, she was the best. Like, we had AP government, and I mean, like, we only had her for 4 months, Clark.
I had her for 2 years in a row.
Okay, so I had
Yeah,
her for
we
4
had her.
months.
I had her for 4 months.
But she's probably the most impactful teacher I've ever had, and I want to thank her for that. I couldn't, but yeah. So
She's the reason I listened to podcasts and
Yeah.
even wanted to speak on a podcast.
yeah. So I know like we all are kind of like we're on the spectrum of like political nerds, and some of us
Yes.
like
How
look
dare
at-
you call me a nerd?
look at results.
I'm a political
from, like,
jock, if I'm anything.
Oh my god. Yeah,
I'm
you
a
played
political
basketball
junkie.
freshman year.
Facts. And then they cut me.
Okay,
You did play basketball.
I did. I started. I was
That's how
good.
we met him. He played basketball with my brother.
you played basketball.
I was good. I started. Do not look at me like that. I understand that I am 5'2".
So how tall are you? Yeah, 5'2".
But I was ferocious on the field, on the court.
Wow. So like I remember I was talking to Yousuf the night of what's his name? Andy Bashir. Andy Bashir won his race in Kentucky. And I think like we truly are a special like breed of human being when we're up on like a Wednesday night, a Tuesday night, looking at like results because we're like psyched that Kentucky has a Democrat as their governor. So, in that, like, are you guys excited for 2020, or is it like a bummer that we're here? Like, are you guys? I'm like scared.
I'm so excited.
Bernie 2020. He do be in the front leading in Iowa and New Hampshire.
Okay,
And nationally.
Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. She's my queen.
I thought you liked Bernie Sanders.
No, it goes Warren, Sanders,
Ah,
yeah.
that's fair. Didn't you donate to Bernie? Like,
Oh, yes, I donated a whole, what is it, $2.79? It's low.
it's a working class movement.
Bernie has, like, the lowest contribution you can click. I think it was either $1 or $2.79. And I was like, why would I say no? You know, this is some pocket change.
We
Because
love
I thought you were an
Bernard.
Elizabeth Warren stan.
Oh, I am. But, you know, I still have to support my, like, socialist, like, leading people, you know?
Democratic Socialist.
Yes, of course.
Fox News will get
Sorry,
mad.
not socialist, yeah.
Yeah. So, some of us will be at college in November.
Yes.
Other of us will be here in Cincinnati.
Okay, all right. I'm a child, I know.
Okay. So, like, how do you think, like, students like us, like, is there like a little Yousuf somewhere? Like, how would you like?
Well, there is.
How would you
There's a
get him
baby
into
Yousuf somewhere.
activism? Because like obviously everyone has their like different experience, whether it's like a election where they were upset with the outcome or like a school shooting. Hopefully that doesn't have to prompt people into activism. But like, how would you get a little Yousuf into activism?
Like, how would I inspire other people?
Yeah.
I think it's about meeting people where they're at because I like to refer to myself as a black hole of activism. I make all of my friends get involved.
That
Yeah,
is
you
so
really do.
true.
But it's about meeting people where they're at. It's about making those connections first and like personal connections and becoming friends with them because all of activism has to be built on love for other people and love for your community, and it's about building that community. So I think the first step is always just meeting people where they're at, letting them do the small stuff, things as simple as like emailing someone and then building that up slowly and slowly and slowly until they're leading the movement and they're leading wherever they end up going. And it's just about reaching out to them instead of waiting for somebody else to reach out to you, which I think a lot of times with a lot of like big organizations, it's harder to do that. But I think that we have an obligation to create a movement that directly reaches out to people and like I keep saying over and over again, meets people where they're at and brings them into the fold. Because a lot of times people's like first response to something happening is like, I don't know how to get involved. I've never seen anything like anyone do anything.
Yeah.
I've never gotten that information or been approached. And being approached, one, makes them feel special, which is always important because they are. And two, it's the most effective thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. And also, on a completely almost unrelated note, I have to say activism is like, if you like just want to meet a whole another group of people and become friends with them like instantly, go to a rally.
That is
guys.
so
That's
true.
facts.
Like, if you're just like some lonely freshman, do it. Like,
If you need to make friends
you're not
and
gonna
like
lose anything.
good people,
Yeah.
All of my friends are activists, and I don't know how that happened.
because you
There's-
attract good.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I do be attracting those good vibes.
You do.
That's why you guys are all at
You
this
put
table.
off good vibes, you get good vibes.
That's facts. Put it there.
We just high-fived if you couldn't hear.
No, definitely as students, like whether you're in high school, college, like I think it's such a like diversity factor because you're meeting so many people, whether like when we think of diversity, we usually think in terms of like gender or race, but we can like think about it like where do you live, like and stuff like that. Like when you go to college, like you're meeting people from different parts of the United States, different parts of the like countries, like they're coming in here. So I think we need to value like everybody's story and like just really collaborate. Like it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to send an email. You don't have to go to a rally. Like just talk about the issues that are important to you and that are pertinent because you sharing your story, that makes other people want to share their story because they feel comfortable and stuff like that. So like once you feel comfortable, like, oh wow, he feels the same way, so let's go out here and do it together. Like I just feel like so many people are scared to like, I'm just gonna be alone here, but like once you really start talking up and open up about it, like you're not alone, like we're all together, like we're all in the mosh pit, let's say.
That is so true.
We're all in
think
the mosh pit of activism.
I think what Yousuf
It's more like a group hug, I think.
Let's start a mosh pit.
it's a loving
That's fair.
hug.
You know, okay, real quick self-plug here. If you want to get involved with Young Activist Coalition, look us up on Instagram or email me at yousufmunir12345@gmail.com. Okay, I'm done with my
Please
self-plug
join
now.
us.
We're saving the world.
Yeah,
Come save the world with
it's on
us. We'll be your friends.
So about what you were just talking about, Lydia, about like older people usually who say like,
And young people. Some young people are like,
That's facts.
you don't know anything.
That's
or like,
facts.
what is this? Is this even your place?
Yes, exactly.
And I know there's been some like relatively high profile cases of that, whether it's like Greta or like any other climate activist. I know we all have like responses to that because I mean most of us have been told that like
Oh, yes.
like this isn't your
Definitely.
place to
Yes.
like speak on,
Uh-huh.
especially with like issues of like gun violence and stuff like that. Like it only affects us. Like it truly, like every single day, it like in our lives it affects us, and like it kind of like affects every one of us a different way. Like climate change affects everyone, but it affects like every person particularly, like in a special part of their life. So
Specifically young people, because we got to inherit that mess.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
something I'm so passionate about right now is climate change. And like the people that are in our government that should be fixing it are like not gonna have to deal with it as long as us. And they don't understand the like how urgent it is and how important it is. Like they're leaving us this big issue to deal with. And I think that's like it's so like belittling when like people at that age level will tell me like, oh, like the Green New Deal would never work or something like that. I'm like, you don't have to deal with this like I do. Like, I'm not going to be able to have children if this is the way it goes. Like, I'm not going to, like, birth someone into, like, just literally the apocalypse. Like, so you don't have the right to tell me that.
I think that Gen Z is really unique because, like millennials, like, much as I love them and all, but, like, they didn't do as much stuff as we're doing from such a young age. Like, the boomers didn't really do that much. That was, like, great. Like Gen X, like my parents, they get their political information from me, so like I'm not sure like I mean, which is like the information is good, don't get me
Yeah, it's good
wrong.
information.
He's not feeding them false
yeah,
information.
don't question Yousuf.
I do feel like our generation is like special, and I feel like we're so much advantage, and I think communication, it can travel faster. So I think it's making us like more aware and stuff like that. So I'm ready to take on 2020. I'm ready to take on 2021, and especially with climate change, we all like that is so important. Like I don't think people understand like not this person just gonna die. Everyone's gonna die. Everyone's gonna be suffering. So like once we all like understand that, like put our hands in, get dirty, like we can really do some stuff. Like, and it is up to us because we are the people who are gonna inherit this. Like what did Greta Thunberg say? Like 2038. Like I don't even think I'm gonna be done with school yet. Like, can I get a start first? So like, let's start it now.
On the plus side, if the world ends, you won't have to pay off your debt. So
Yeah, then you won't have to be crushed under student loans.
Yeah.
Because YO's college $30,000 a year.
Okay, so do we want to get like a final word in from everyone? Do you want to start with that, Yousuf?
I think what's important for everyone, and especially for all the young people listening, is to just get out there. It's extremely scary, especially if you've never done anything political or activism-y before. But once you get out there, you realize that it's a very nice environment and people are very welcoming. They'll welcome you with open arms, and especially at Young Activist Coalition, which is the group that you should join. We're very much a community of love, and we build everything that we do on that love. So just get out there, do your thing.
So I think my final last thoughts would be, first off, stay educated. When you're passive and you're not knowing what's going on in your government, how are you going to care? How are you going to be an activist? How are you going to create change? So, and I think that's what allows like the stagnancy that we see in our government is like people not paying attention, people not caring. So I think that's like probably one of the most important things is like staying educated, and then also like get out and vote in 2020. Yes. We were talking about it. We want to see the change, and we want everyone to help us along with our path and help kids not have to have active shooter drills and interrupt their learning. Let's make sure climate change doesn't kill all of us. I don't know. I think overall, like, just stay educated and don't, like, be passive in your day-to-day life.
I would say that every day you wake up is a blessing and an opportunity to take on the fight. You can't win a victory if there's no struggle. So when we struggle, don't get down. Don't think like, oh, this isn't going to work. Keep going, keep struggling, because sometimes something's got to give. So, like, believe in yourself, believe in your power. Understand that when you educate yourself, you're not just educating your mind. You're educating, like, your environment. You're becoming more diverse. You're becoming entwined with things. So, like, when we do that, we make a pledge to ourselves and to others that we're going to make it better, not just for ourselves, but for everybody, for the entire world. So just always try to better. When you better yourself, just better the world. Like, we're all here. No one knows really their purpose in life, their destiny, but at least try to make it better. Yeah. David.
Yeah.
Clark, I love you.
So I agree with all of you guys, but my like last word would be go to the rally. Like, go to the thing that you're like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna go, because like I would have not met all these like amazing people. And I've like just 1 second.
You're just gonna leave me hanging?
I have to think. I would have not met all these like amazing people if I didn't like go to that rally and just like get in it. And you don't have to wake up every day saying like, today I'm gonna change the world, because like you're gonna get burnout. You're gonna like not know what to do after like a month. Just like go to as many things you can, and like maybe like it's not for everyone, but like still like be in it. Like, cause on like, what day did we vote? November 3rd.
Well, there's primaries in
March
17th.
March 17th in Ohio. On March 18th in Ohio, are you gonna be like, oh, I didn't like this person or whatever? Like, you have to vote. And then on November 4th, when you're upset, whoever won or lost, just like remember that like you have to like try, or don't complain. That's why I got in this, because I could not find a reasoning for my complaining. So I was like, I guess I'll just go intern for graduate campaign. But yeah, that's my final word. Just like get in the fight.
Democracy NC is a program of Cincinnati Public Radio and WVXU with support from the Charles H. Dater Foundation. Thanks for listening up.